Lesson 5.3, the essential question, I can add and subtract mixed numbers. Alright, so a mixed number, remember, is a whole number and a fraction put together. You have two different options for adding and subtracting these. One is that I can always change these into improper fractions, then find common denominators and add and subtract. So if I did that, remember you multiply these two numbers and add this one up on top. So that would be 8 plus 1 is 9. Keep it all over the same denominator. 9/4 plus, multiply and add. I've got 15, 16, 17 fifths. I want a common denominator. 20 works. Okay, if I multiply this by 5, I got 20. So I'm going to multiply the top times 5, I get 45. On this next one, I multiplied times 4 to get 20, so I'm going to multiply times 4. 17 times 4, split that into two groups. Say this is 10 times 4 is 40. 7 times 4 is 28. Put that together and I get 68. Okay, now all I need to do is add my top numbers. I get 113 over 20. Now I have to change it back into a mixed number because it's improper fraction. It's very heavy on top. So I'm going to take my 20s and say how many of those 20s could fit into 113. So let's count by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. That was 5 whole 20s. And that was 100 that I took away. So I have 13 left out of 20. That's method 1. Method 1 is not my favorite. The reason why is because notice even with small numbers here, I got pretty large numbers there and I'm going to have a really large number there. If you have big numbers, like let's say you have 28 there and 42 here, you are going to be dealing with a huge number in the thousands place on the top, and we don't like those. You got to have another method. Here's your second method. Add or subtract the fractions first, then add or subtract the whole number parts and put them together to form your answer. So I'm going to add and subtract this part first. I'm going to do this problem, 5 9ths plus 1/6. I need a common denominator. A good common denominator could be 54, just multiplying the two of them together. I could also go with something smaller like 36 if you can find one. And I'm going to use the smallest thing I can think of. So 36 means I multiply times 4. On my top, I get 20. For this one, I multiply times 6. On the top, I get 6 for a total of 26 36ths. Now I'll take my whole numbers, put those together. 4 plus 1 plus 4, sorry, is 5, and 26 36. I'm almost done. All I need to do is simplify. So I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 5 and 13/18. That's in simplest form. Alright, so let's stick with method 2 for a while just because it's my favorite method, and I don't really want to deal with the number that's going to come of this. It's going to be over 50 on the top, and that's just too big. Okay, so I'm going to take my fraction parts, 5/6 plus 1/3. Find a common denominator. 6 works. So then if I have 6 on the bottom, that was multiplied times 2. Multiply this one times 2, and I get a 2 on top. When I add those together, I get 7/6. When I put these together, I get 10. Now let's fix it. This is top heavy, so I'm going to change that to 1 1/6. If I'm doing that, notice I have a 10 and I have a 1 1/6. Put those together and I have 11 1/6. So you're just going to add those whole numbers and keep the fraction part. Alright, here's another one. I'm going to take 7/8. Notice it's a minus problem this time. Minus 3/4. I'm going to change my denominators to 8ths. That means I'm multiplying this fraction by 2. And I get 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. 8th, 13 minus 9 is 4. Check it. Is it in simplest form? It is. We're done. What does 1 look like as a fraction? Well, 1 could look like many things as a fraction. 1 could look like 1 over 1. 1 could look like 5 over 5. 1 could look like 17 over 17. Think about another way that 1 could look like. Okay, just think of like if I had a whole pizza. It would be every single slice, right? So it doesn't matter how many slices I have. Maybe I have 100 slices. 100 out of 100 is a whole pizza, right? I could have 3 out of 3. There's my whole pizza. So here when we have a problem like this and we want to know, well, I need to change this because I only have one fraction, and we can't subtract with one fraction. We need to have two. So I'm going to change this and say I'm going to take one of these away. If I do, I have a 5 and a 1, right? Together that makes 6. So instead I'm going to write my 1 as a fraction. So let's write that as 5 and 8/8. Why do you think I chose 8 as my fraction here, 8/8? Well, I'll give you a huge clue. It's because the other fraction had 8, and now I don't have to find a common denominator. It's already done for me. So I can take 8/8 minus 5/8, and I get 3/8. 5 minus 1 is 4. Make sure it's in simplest form. It is, and we're done. Okay? You can choose whatever method you want to try to do this. This one, it says I might choose method 1 for this. The reason why is, if you notice, if I change this, I'm going to have 8/10 minus 9/10. This is a borrowing problem. In a borrowing problem, it might be more simple to have improper fractions because then you don't have to borrow. So that's one way that method 1 is better than method 2. Let me show you how you do borrow if you need to. So this is saying 5 and 8/10 minus 1 and 9/10. I just changed so that they had the same denominator. Alright, so if I want to take 8 minus 9, I can't do that. So I'm going to borrow from the 5. I'm going to make it a 4. How many pieces are in my pizza, or how many is it out of my total? It's out of 10, right? So we're going to add 10/10, which is basically just adding 1 to this fraction because we took 1 away from my whole number. So I'm going to call that 18/10 minus 1 and 9/10. I can take my fraction parts. 18 minus 9 is 9/10. 4 minus 1 is 3. If I had done this with the other method, I would have just multiplied. That's 25. Add, so that's 29 over 5. Minus, multiply, that's 10. Add, it's 19 over 10. Change my denominator, so I have them both over 10. So I have 19/10 there. I doubled this, so I'm going to double that one. That's 40, 58. 58, take away 19. So I'm going to have, let's see, 58, take away 19. A 9 and a 39. So 39/10. 10 goes into 39 3 times with 9 left over out of 10. I don't know. It's up to you which method is easier, works nicer for you. I kind of still prefer method 2. Alright, here's another example of when you need to borrow. So I'm going to change my denominators first to find out that I need to borrow. So let's change these both to 24. Okay, when I change these, this one's times 4, this is times 3, so I'm going to times by 4 on the top, I get 20, times by 3 on the top, I get 3. Oh, this is not a borrowing problem. Excellent. So I'm just going to carry on. 20 minus 3 is 17 over 24. 11 minus 3 is 8. Sorry for the delay there. This is in simplest form, so I'm done. Alright, check your understanding by pausing the video and trying these two problems. So for the first one, when you change this, you probably got 24s as well. This one, you should have gotten 3 24s. This one, you should have gotten 20 24s. Put that together, and I have 8 and 23 24s. Here I have a subtraction problem. My common denominators are 14. This is 7 14ths. This is 8 14ths. Okay, when I subtract, I get 4 and 1 14th. One evening, a restaurant served 4 1/6 loaves of white bread and 1 1/6 loaves of white bread. Sorry, wheat bread was the first one. How many loaves are served in all? This is an addition problem. 4 1/6 plus 1 1/6. A 6 plus a 6 is 2/6. 4 plus 1 is 5. Simplify to 5 1/3 loaves. Brett lives 2 1/4 miles from school. Mateo lives 1 5/6 miles from school. How much closer to school does Mateo live? We're going to subtract 2 1/4 minus 1 5/6. I get a common denominator of 12. Here I multiplied by 3. 2 and 3/12. Here I multiplied times 2. 1 and 10/12. I need to borrow for this problem because it's subtraction. So I'm going to change this to a 1. Add 12 to the top because that's my bottom number. 15/12 minus 1 and 10/12. And I get 0 because 1 minus 1 is 0, so I'm not going to write the 0. But 5 minus 10 is 5/12 of a mile. Alright, it's time for your NICU check. Have a good night. Good luck on your NICU.